Hello everyone and welcome back to CK3. Today we've got a guide on 10 interesting starts in the after the new Royal Court DLC expansion. And these are all top level rulers. I'll do a separate guide on rulers that aren't necessarily independent rulers. So we're going to hit some of the tribal nations first, and then we'll go into the feudal ones. So have some fun with that. Realize that if I haven't put it on this list, it might be on the next list, or there's a reason I haven't put it on there. So the first one up here is the Kyrgyz Khanate. These guys have a very interesting start. Their starting ruler here owns quite a few provinces, and most importantly, if you look at the Tengri religion here, he actually owns 2 of the 3 needed holy sites to reform Tengri into a reformed faith. The other one is located right down here, and he can grab it pretty quickly at a beginning war. You do have the slight problem of your cultural pillars make your vassals a little less loyal, but you can very quickly expand into an area with a different culture and diverge your culture with them to get rid of that, or you could just get rid of it yourself. But very fun start. If you start out here, you can build up. You can kind of just peacefully kind of spend your time up here developing your lands, which, by the way, are absolutely horrendous. It's probably one of the worst areas in the game. But thankfully, you don't have any major rivals other than this person down here, and you're significantly stronger with a lot of land under your control. Just remember to disinherit members of your dynasty so that you don't get split apart into like 3 or 4. But it's pretty easy to expand, create the Mongolian Empire, and build up to hopefully fight the Mongols when they inevitably invade. Number 2 is over here. Good old Rurik. Basically, this is the guy who kind of forms proto-Russia. He's a little bit, in a sense, isolated because he's Norse and the lands around him aren't Norse, but he is Viking, so you get all the really cool Viking dynasty legacies and stuff. And he starts off in a pretty good spot. It's a little bit hard for him to go off and reform the Norse religion, though, and if you're going to do that, you kind of have to re-invade this area to get the needed holy sites. But I found him fun, and he's a pretty good start for the area. He's larger than most. Just be aware of the Jewish horde over here, which is quite strong. Next one, number 3, is one of my favorite ones, the Piasts of Poland. For some reason, I seem to have a fondness of forming Poland in Paradox games, and this guy's probably one of the best positions to do it. It also helps that there is now an achievement, Brave and the Bold, for him. I'm in fact doing a series on him. If you don't want to play Polish, you could play over here as Bohemia. They have the same religion, however they already own enough lands to form a kingdom. They don't actually have to conquer anything, but if you do, then you're going to be expanding out of your very limited Czech culture into Polish, and everybody else is up there. Fun start as the Piasts, alternate start Bohemia if you really want to change. The next one is actually on the other side of the map down here with Ghana. So Ghana, of course, deserves a mention because it was one of the first countries I played, but also because you're a king in an area with only a handful of dukes. So it's very easy to grow from your starting area. And in fact, trying to reform your religion is not particularly hard. You already own quite a bit of the land of the actual religion. You do have to expand a bit and convert to reform your religion, but it's a nice start. You don't have any major threats at this 1067 start date. So that's always a fun one. So those are the unreformed ones. There are other ones, but I'll mention those at another time. I will give a one-off mention to this guy up here, Ironside of Upland. If you want to reform the Norse religion and play as Scandinavian Vikings, this guy might be the easiest to do so because he can very quickly form Sweden. Now, in terms of reformed countries, there's quite a few. Let's see, where do we want to start? Let's start with the lowest ranked of them up here in Wessex. So if you do the, if you look at the start options, other than play as any ruler, it will encourage you to play as Alfred the Great over here. But at the start of the game, he's actually not the ruler of Wessex, and I tend to find that his brother here tends to have children, in which case if you stirs this guy, you may never see the throne unless you murder him. And probably not the best start. Anyway, Wessex here controls quite a bit of land. They are the largest and the strongest of the Christians in the British Isles. They're also, unlike Scotland, they are feudal, which does have the disadvantage that you have less levies than the tribal ones, but they tend to be stronger. However, you tend to have time to build up. There's a great decision. If Jorvik here expands and conquers this, you can actually split Mercia out between them, and you'll basically get enough. You'll become King of England without having to conquer lots of lands, which is nice because, surprisingly, England's one of the harder kingdoms to form, in my opinion, just because it's large. Okay, next one. We're actually going to jump all the way over here to Bulgaria. So, Bulgaria is on this list because it's a fun start, to be honest. It's a hard start, so just be aware of that going in. You own a lot of lands. You're potentially going to have to deal with an invasion here from the Maiar. You don't have the most stable of areas. In fact, you've got a couple different cultures and some different religion in your land. But if you can survive, you can probably go on to kill the Byzantines. Just be aware that they are a threat looming over you, and play accordingly. The next one is going to be back here in Europe. We're going to talk about the Carolingians. Out of all the Carolingian starts, I find the easiest one over here is Charles II of West Francia, mainly because he's the head of the house, which means he can disinherit heirs, so he doesn't have to split his kingdom if at start you immediately go through and disinherit some of your heirs. So just be aware, disinheriting is a really good way to keep your realm together. It's easier now that you get renown bonuses from royal court. He also has the exciting fun of starting with a courtly court in the new royal court, which gives, if he gets the level high enough, in fact it's him, it's pretty easy to get your court level to 10. You get like a plus 30 something to vassalization. And if you see my other guide, if you haven't, check it out, but if you've seen it, I talk about the power of diplomacy and how it's actually solid now. Playing as this guy, I managed, without a war, to create the Empire of Francia, basically. It's kind of silly that Francia is the name of the empire as well as one of the kingdoms. Once I created the empire, I vassalized the Italians, the Bavarians, the Lotharingians, and I vassalized the East Francians given time. Also vassalized England, Brittany, and Navarra all peacefully. The only really annoying war I had was couple independence factions. Just be aware that you are expanding fast, and having your steward promote cultures is a very powerful thing to stabilizing these realms, because basically if you play as any of the Carolingians, just be aware that keeping your cultures integrated is very important unless you're going to convert them. The next one, this will be the last one in the European area, the rest will be elsewhere, is a split between the Byzantines and Abbasids. The reason I'm splitting this is because if you play as these guys, you're playing as one of the strongest countries in the game to start. If you play as the Byzantines, you're really powerful. If you play as the Abbasids, it's a little less stable because you got to deal with the clan government. But if you can solve that problem, you'll be very powerful. They also are both have high levies, good incomes, relatively solid power bases. In fact, the Byzantines are Orthodox and they're all Greek. You're really stable. The Abbasids, a little less. You can see the different cultures. If you play as them, my advice is you convert the Syriac culture here pretty much from the start of the game, and you probably relocate your capital up here from Samarra to Baghdad itself. In terms of the Byzantines, just be aware that if you're not emperor, if you're emperor and you don't control Constantinople, there is a decision to retake it, which is fun. If you do play as the Byzantines, be aware that you start at war with these guys over here, but once you're done dealing with that, you can actually pretty easily vassalize some of these people out here with the very little work. Do be aware though, the Byzantines start with an intrigue court. I swap away from it pretty much immediately, just unless you want to play a game of nothing but intrigue, which the Byzantines were very backstabbing historically. I found it better to change. I think the other one is admin. Whereas the Abbasids, I think you start as religious, but you have the choice of going scholarly. My advice is go scholarly, to be honest. Now, out here, we've got the last two. We have these guys right here. Prathihara, probably said that wrong. Sorry to the Indian people. They're the largest kingdom on the Indian subcontinent, and they're in the best position to form an empire pretty quickly. They can form Rajasthan and then conquer the rest. They are Hindu, and do remember that the area around here is known for multiple faiths and cultures, so it can be slightly difficult to hold the realm together. Again, disinheriting is your best bet. You're the head of a dynasty, which does make it easier. And there's quite a few people up here that you can easily take over. I didn't have too much luck diplomatically converting them because some are Muslim and stuff, but you can do it given time. And then it's just a matter of fighting two kind of major kingdom conquest wars here, and you control most of the subcontinent. And the final one is a nation that is near and dear to my heart, the kingdom of, however you say this, basically. If you see my guide, you'll know that you can take over the kingdom of Tibet in less than 20 wars. So if you do it, take that as a challenge to yourself. Try and fight under 10 offensive wars. There's an achievement for creating the kingdom of Tibet, is the Pugal dynasty. It would be these guys over here. However, they're not they're not stable, unlike this guy. They have a different culture in their lands, and they have a very much different religion here. Both of them have to do religiously converting and culture integrating. I just found this guy start a little bit easier because diplomatically you can vassalize basically this whole region within 50 years, and you can even get out here. Whereas this guy, they're more complete lands. It's your choice. This guy's fun. If you want to go for the achievement, try doing it diplomatically for an extra thrill. Definitely had a lot of fun doing that. Remember that building up good courts matters, and yeah, it's a fun ride. I do advise you convert away from the Bon faith here to this Buddhist faith here, because they tend to dominate this region given a little bit of time. So anyway, those are the nations that I think are 10 really fun and interesting starts, and 867. And they're all the independent ones. I'll do another one on vassals. So thank you for all watching, and I will see you guys all another time. Bye for now.